Hello, this is Gerald van Waas. In my videos I explained already a lot of letters that have a specific position in a numerical order of a time and space orientation. And so you can, from there, you can derive meanings, you can derive the positions, which we seem to follow also by making words and by orientating ourselves upon words. But what about these strange sounds or combinations of sounds like j, for instance, which you have now and then? How can we analyze them? They don't have a specific position in that frame that could help us. So how do we analyze that? And this video is meant to show you how you can analyze this position and its variations also, because we have the word gel in Dutch, which is gel in English. We have a lot of French words, for instance, with that sound, from which a part of them are written with a G, like gêne, Jean, jeune, and je are, the last two, are written with the J. They are written differently. So what's the difference? How do we see this position, and how can we analyze that, and how can we understand it, and why is it used differently, and so on? Is that also grounded in this theory of sound positions that have a structure of their own that we unconsciously follow because it's structured, because it's as structured as a mathematical system almost? Do we still follow that, and can we analyze that, and do we use that in that way? All of that will be answered in this video, and of course I will also answer with that strange word in Chinese, the zhen, which is not pronounced perfectly now because it's a bit rounder, and it's also a bit more difficult to associate. Where is then the position, and how do we see that in the position of these other words? And I have already slightly shown you in the background some of these words already in my video when I was explaining the Chinese word, because it easily is associated from there. So it's best that I show you how you can understand the positions from the orientations, from the almost mathematical associations that bring forward certain associations that makes it more easy to associate its positions, its directions, its orientations. Okay, let's go. So what is the background context for to make out any of these positions of letters? As I said, it is all about an orientation in space. We have that not just in our eyes, that we see something very close by, further away, very far away. The same way our ears also associate things and name things. It's like they pinpoint things in time and space, and they first pick out the space, and it tries to orientate itself in there to have starting points. A bit further away, when they move, when they change, the starting points alone are no longer enough. So we have to take out elements that have a relation with time. If this is also not sufficient enough, okay, we have to see, what's then the bigger context? How do we see that in the bigger context, that we can still pinpoint it more or less, where it is, how it is behaving, and even if we can't see one of these things, the position or the behavior in which direction it goes, we can still name it by context. And these three kinds of focuses are all related with certain letters that are in an almost mathematical order in positions in these three regions of focus. So what's then with the sound or double sound of j? There's something of the G in there, there's something of the Z in there, there's something of the J in there, and it's in fact a kind of mixture of it all. and they blend quite well. So I can only describe what's going on so that you know what's going on with the usage of that sound. So of course I have these three regions, in which all of them have also a geometrical position. They all have numerological positions. So, and they have also and the context, of course. So the first 9 positions in space are 1 point, leading center point of positions. The second one is where the changes occur and so on. So you need, of course, 2 points to show you the element, to describe the element, and the last one will need 3 points if you really have to show the position, where the position more or less is, like an estimation between 2 points that you can hardly see. You can still figure out, okay, it will be in between these 2 positions by context. So that's more or less how our background will help us. But I will figure out these G, Z and J sound, where they are and how they hang together. The G, we start with the G, and we can simply read it, the position in the scheme, and then know what kind of form fits there, and how this position or positioning or estimation is working. And I might not have always explained it in the same way, because especially this last category, I thought it was quite difficult to figure out exact pinpointing the places, because they were not about places, they are not about a time frame, but they are about context. But in a way, it still is simple, because it all comes down to 1 point where you can sense or associate or orientate upon one of these letters, Q, V or G. And the G is at the 3rd position, so it's a center point. It's in the 3rd position, and it also has it needs 3 points to make up the context. 2 of these points are aside, because that's where you don't know how far it goes, and it goes to a larger area that is connected there. It's like in a circle. You have it is a big circle, and you have a middle point there. That's the G. It also comes down to that point, but it is connected via context to something larger. I think that's a very good explanation. It also explains it quite well from the scheme, because it has a center position. It's perfect in the scheme. It has in the 3rd position, it's at the edges, so it is focusing from the edges towards a center point. And that's what you can see in the context. You have a starting point there. That's what we can use and which we will use. I will explain it a little bit better what that context can be. The next letter is the Z. The Z is in the 2nd frame. It's all about timings. So the timings are in the vertical sense. They are at that position. You have 2 kinds of letters that are possible there, the Z or the W. The Z is going inwardly at the edge in the volume part, so it means in the developing part, in the changes are going inwards. That's basically what it is, as you can see there, in these 2 positions that I have there. They are describing the Z. It's going inwards in the volume, means in the processes themselves. The processes themselves are going inwardly at the edge, but into the changes themselves. So there's a kind of continuation of the process that is going inwardly. That's how you can understand the Z. Whereas the J then, that's at the third position in this time frame, so it will be about limits, making limits also. So it has to make a limit now this time. So the first positions are about making a starting point. The second row is about continuations. The third one is about making limitations. So we start from making limitations, and there we start from. We start to make as many limitations in our horizontal lead forward, in our lead forward, that's what I say, and in our continuation we want to certain limitations. So don't make it too complicated. We make the J is explained well in my book as going around. It's like you're traveling in a boat and there are rocks everywhere. You try to avoid all the rocks. You just flow in between the stream, and you try to avoid everything so that you can continue. You have a continuation with your own forwardness, but going around all the edges that there are, so without having too much of confrontations. That's the way how this is behaving. I've also in my book I develop. I say how they develop from one letter to the next one, and that's how this behavior also is there at that point. There's a reason why this behaves also, not just by position, but because of this whole context in the system. So the J is behaving within the stream with as least friction as possible. So we have a first example, is GEL. I will first take the Dutch word because it's without the D in the beginning, so it's the J sound in total. So with N, there's of course an emphasis on G because it's written as G. So I have this, it comes from bigger context, and it's narrowing it down by the Z sound and A in the evolution downwardly towards something that will have to take form via L. You can read what the letters mean in the book, but that's what it is. It is taking form, taking a shape. That's the L. But that's the starting point underneath, and all of it together comes to a combination of the G, the Z, which makes the vibrations inwardly, the J, which makes kind of fluent thing that is not disturbing the thing, so it can have a different form without disturbing the whole. But at the end you will come to a physical formation, like it's the drop of the gel that comes out, let's say, and it has a consistency. But what it also has is it has this big, it's connected via the G with a bigger context. So that means with something that is beyond it, something bigger from a different area, from the inwardly, from the outwardly. All the elements slightly come together via the Z. It will go inwardly. Elements that comes from elsewhere that you can't see. With the G, it's always about something that you can't see, that comes from a larger context than the one that you can see. Makes it so that the gel is full of nutrients or full of qualities, all the kinds of things that you can't see immediately, but they are coming together into that form and formation process also in time that gradually becomes more and more until you have this physical form at the end. And it consists of the G, which makes this bigger contact to something bigger or beyond, what is not immediately visible. The Z brings its bigger vibrations to a lower level to adapt towards inner conditions. That's the Z, that's the signification of Z everywhere, in every word. The J is this flow of with as little resistance as possible. Let's say that you have this form at the end. It will have a kind of freedom how you can move it and so on, and it still holds everything together, so it's there. The A is that process that gradually will come to the letter L, then in the end the form or the shape that it will take in the end with its full result of G to E to L. So I think that's quite understandable what's happening there in the combination of sounds and in combination of as how it has been written. With the English word we have a D to it, so it's gel, and D is the association in that you can read from my scheme. It's always about two time frames. That means two positions in time, so it comes from one time frame. In this case, it's also associated with this general condition, with the larger conditions where it comes from, and they come down into the gel like almost like the neutrons that come together, so that they create a different condition and also go to a different condition. So with the D, you can either collect the conditions in the beginning with the je. They go towards that, also to that moment where you have an applied condition, even so where you can use the addition, where you can use the gel. That is this applied condition. Even there you can read it from the letters. So the G as G or G, je can be somewhat described like this. So I will have an effect in the end also on the physical thing, especially with the L is about making something physical, making a form. You can see that that thing is underneath. It is making a shape with elements that actually comes from elsewhere. And I have another word, and I will go to the French word, gens. That's French, it means people. And also there you have the G, the generalized bigger context, which will find individual elements in that communicative area of time. And time frame is about timings, it's about context, it's about the environment, it's about where you make the changes. It's this whole set of conditions of changes and so on, and it's used in intercommunications and so on. That's that area of the time frame. It's always the same, it's always that kind of time frame, and that fits it also. So the gens or the people are actually related to a bigger context of the people with its individual application. So it is this, and it is a bit comparable to I didn't put the S there yet. So I have here gen. I analyzed only the word gen, and gen is then also like the gen, the genes. It's an adaptive counterpart representing the bigger context into the smaller context where it is associated within this intercommunicative area. The S to it, which you don't hear, it only repeats that vibe, let's say, to see that in its own context. So I will immediately represent. So this S, which normally is, when you start from S, it's at the edges, but here it starts at the edges of my result, of the G, and it repeats all of its patterns that it had before. So the gen will be repeated with gens, within gens, it will be repeated on the same vibe, with the same process. The process is repeated. That's what the S often does at the end of the word if you simply add S. So that's why it's used for plural as well. So you can just repeat the process. You can see the process again with this S at the end. And I can, of course, compare it to this Chinese word again, like zhen written as ren. You see this Chinese symbol again. Also there, it is, you see, it is this whole general flow and run of things there. It will fit in just the same way as the gens or the people fit in that kind of rhythm together. So you can associate it easily. So gens in French is of course people. Now you still have jeune as well. The jeune, it's written differently. The G is more important. So this flow of moving freely in between the things is different from the S that makes the things hang together and repeated. The je has this a little bit more free course of things individually, and the U always is an association to something which is still in development. It's the other as well, but it is also something that is in development somewhere else, and it's still developing. So that fits also in the association or orientation upon the name of the naming of jeune for youngsters. And then of course we have je, which is almost only the letter je as well, but it's written as G plus E, so it is with an emphasis on this G. So what if we take the same context, the je is still there, but the G is highlighted more than the G. This is J, sorry, is highlighted more than the G. So it's this free flow again. This is a description. I could make other designs some other point as well, but you know what context I'm describing. This the G is this, and this is free flow. The E is always about I follow this time frame. There's a time frame, but with a short E. It's a very minimal position. It's a minimal position. So the E has its own position with a little bit more freedom, with its own time to develop. The I in the English sense starts from the same part with its own process that it and opinions and how it sees things. Je is more like, okay, the person, the individual has a little bit more free starting point. It will do what it thinks it's the best to do, and that's his starting point, the je. That's a quite good description also to start with. With your own, doing your own thing. That's more or less how the word is associated. So I hope this brought you closer to the sound je and its meanings and its full context and so on. You had some words that hang together, which I showed you how they hang together if you compare them quite closely. I hope this was enjoyable. Thanks for watching. Website, books, Facebook, and so on. Thanks again. Bye.